All right, here we go. Second time today. You're not imagining things. Um, Today we get meta. Okay, today we talk about talking. Uh, like I said in the intro to this video, I probably went in a little hard on my viewing public. I'm a savage. That's how we roll. Okay, that's how we roll. Um, Permit me to illustrate. This is from Alice in Wonderland, one of my favorite books. I've read it, I don't know, 50 times. Sometimes I read it specifically to read it. And one of my favorite characters was the Cheshire Cat, the Cheshire Cat. Let me illustrate. The cat only grinned when it saw Alice. It looked good-natured, she thought. Still, it had very long claws and a great many teeth, so she felt that it ought to be treated with respect. Cheshire Puss, she began, rather timidly, as she did not know at all whether it would like the name. However, it only grinned a little wider. Come, it's pleased so far, Alice thought, and she went on. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? That's for you. That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said I. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you go, said the cat. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat, if you only walk long enough. Alice felt that this could not be denied, so she tried another question. What sort of people live about here? In that direction, said the cat, waving its right paw around, lives a hatter. And in that direction, waving the other paw, lives a March hare. Visit either you like. They're both mad. But I don't want to go among mad people, Alice remarked. Oh, you can't help that, said the cat. We're all mad. I'm mad. You're mad. How do you know I'm mad? Said Alice. You must be, said the cat, or you wouldn't have come here. The Cheshire Cat in this passage is a savage. He doesn't say anything, it doesn't say anything not truthful, doesn't say anything especially useful or intended to be useful. The Cheshire Cat answers the questions. They are truthful answers. Everything said is truthful. The Mad Hatter won't tell you the truth, and the Mad Hare won't tell you the truth. They will tell you what's on their mind. They'll tell you what's on their mind. They'll explain their world to you in great minute detail. And if you're Alice, which is to say you're, non-judgmental and open to all points of view and, not argumentative and not particularly opinionated on the subject, then you'll simply accept their narrative and you go on about your business. The Cheshire Cat, on the other hand, is an absolute savage. The Cheshire Cat is my people. My people. We are savages. Savages don't care. They don't care about your God. They don't care about your truth. They don't care about what motivates you. They don't care why you came to their land. And if you screw up, they're not going to be happy with you. And they won't stop being unhappy with you until you stop being insane. All right. What I want to talk about in this video, and it shouldn't be very long, it is going to be savage. This video will be savage. You're likely to unlike it a lot. And I'm going to sit here and, like the Cheshire Cat, I'm just going to grin. Here it comes. You're in denial. I haven't met anyone yet who's not in denial about climate change. I have listened to a lot of narratives about how we got here, why you know why we're experiencing the things we are, what is the way out, what is the future, what are our chances. I've heard a lot of narratives, and very often I will get into it and I'll think, wow, this person really has it figured out. That's pretty good. I'm really glad. Let's see what they have to say. Let's see how much of this I can really agree with. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I'll pick up their perspective a little bit, and I'll maybe some of my own quandaries will be resolved. Maybe some of my own misgivings will be handled. Right? Or maybe I'll come out of this feeling better about the whole thing. And at some point, I become disappointed. There are no exceptions. Maybe one or two. I don't know. It feels like there are no exceptions, or at least not consistently. And I come out of these, these exposures to people's ideas about our current predicament with regards to fossil fuels, and I come out savagely disappointed on some level of savage. And I get to a point, sometimes I get to a point and my wife will say, here, well, let's listen to this. This person was pretty right on. And I'll get into it, I'll say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they'll say the thing, whatever the thing is. And it'll open up the door into their mind. And it just opens up for me. And I can see everything. I can see it all. It's not, they're not even in the room. And yet I can see it all through their words, because words matter to me. Just like words matter to the Cheshire Cat. Every single word in every single sentence serves a purpose. And everything comes out without hesitation. Everything has meaning. Nothing needs to be interpreted. It's all there. It's all laid out like the landscape. And I see it. It's there. So, okay, this person hasn't got a clue. They're in denial about global heating and climate change. So I'm going to throw out here some, what's the best phrase for this? Some samples of what I call denial. Now, there's a spectrum of denial about our predicament. Everything from, the far extreme, it's a hoax, it's not, it's a conspiracy by the scientists or the woke or something, all the way to the other extreme, which is still denial. I mean, it is. I call it soft denial, but a lot of the stuff that I call denial, that they're just not addressing the problem. And cognitive dissonance, refusal, whatever the reason is, they're not addressing the problem. They're not telling the truth. They're lying. It's a little white lie maybe, but it's a lie all the same. Okay. And yet those lies, those half truths, are mainstream climate acceptance. It is. It drives me crazy. There's nothing I can do about it. I mean, I can't really let it drive me crazy. And I guess, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And I've become so habituated to it. It's just so common that this is what I end up being surrounded by, that I just have to just kind of roll over. I just let it roll off my back, right? Water off my back. And I just go on. And I just realize that, yeah, everyone here is mad. I'm mad, you're mad, everyone here is mad. I try to be less insane than everybody else. I try to be very, 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 very clear and deliberate. I try to always focus on, before I say that, is that the truth? And, it kind of works for me. Wife just got home. So forms of soft denial, mainstream climate acceptance denial. The first is the term climate change. That's denial. If you're running around talking about climate change and the importance of climate change and how climate change should be front and center, and politicians should have a stand on climate change, and we should be putting more science into studying climate change, and more policy, and the IPCC is all about climate change, and all the cops need to address climate change and all this climate, that's all denial. That's all denial. It just is. It's not true. The term climate change comes to us courtesy of the Chamber of Commerce, or their equivalent. I don't know who actually did it, but basically it's the Chamber of Commerce, capitalism, if you like. The word climate change comes to us because the thinking people of the world were starting to talk about this thing called global heating, which was being caused by excess carbon emissions into the atmosphere and enhancing the greenhouse effect, global heating. And someone along the line said, okay, we need to reframe this. We need to phrase this differently. Global heating is a real thing, but it is something that could be addressed. It's something that could be talked about. It's instrumental, meaning it's thermometers, okay? It's a real thing. You can measure it, and if you focus on it enough, you'll see the temperature going up, and you'll be alarmed by the instrument. The instrument, the computer, the satellite, the thermometer, the whatever. It will show you something. You'll say, yeah, look at that. Wow. Oh, no, that's amazing. Everywhere I go with my thermometer, it's hotter than it was the day before. Okay? That kind of narrative had to be combated. And so they came up with climate change. Now, climate change is not instrumental. It just isn't. You think it is, but it's not. Climate change is the outcome of tens of thousands of changes in your environment. Tens of thousands. It's just not a thing. Climate is just what you experience every day. The average of all your weather is just what you experience. And every day is different. And if you're going to focus on your climate, well, my climate is sort of temperate. It doesn't rain too much in the summer and mostly in a couple of months in the winter. And that's my climate, but it's all kind of squishy and fuzzy. And so we talk about climate change because it's all squishy and fuzzy. It's denial. You're in denial. If that's what you're talking about, and you're going to run around having all this climate change stuff on front and center, top of mind, then you're in denial. You are, because that's not what's happening to you. That's not what's happening to your world. That's not what's happening to people in other countries. Is climate change. What's happening is the planet's getting hotter. It's global heating. And these call it global warming, but we have to get over that. It's way beyond, warming. Yeah, that warming, that would be nice. That was like last century global warming. Now we're global heating, right? Everything's off the charts now. Let's not call it warming like it's a pleasant thing. Warm and fuzzy, right? Global heating. Oh, and I guess in a couple of more decades, it'll be global boiling, global baking. That's where it's going. So climate change is itself on the thresholds of denial. You are in the land of denial. Someone lied to you and you swallowed it, and you are not in the realm of reality. Your problem is not climate change. That's a symptom of the problem. And there's lots of symptoms that come under global climate change. Your problem is global heating. And what's causing that problem is excess carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere from human consumption of fossil fuels. That is the sum total of your problem. You have no other problems. That is your problem. You have to solve that. Now, you personally can't really solve that. So, what can we do? I don't know. Well, I know. Once you've properly identified the problem, once you're no longer in denial about the problem, you are now both feet firmly in the real world, and you know that the real problem is the global heating, and that is caused by excess CO2 emissions into the atmosphere, which leads to an enhanced greenhouse effect, which is the source of the warming. And once you know all that, then you understand the answer. It was right there. It was right there in that sentence. It's fossil fuels. You have to stop burning fossil fuels. That's it. That's your answer. Once you land both feet in reality, the answer is there. It just greets you with open arms. Yes, I am the answer. Love me. But everybody likes this other narrative. Climate change. There is nothing in there you can wrap your head around. There's nothing in that you can do. Other forms of soft denial. We can solve this with technology. Okay, well, that's nice if it were true. The basis for the statement, historically, we've solved a lot of things using technology. Penicillin, all right, solved some problems for us. Germ theory of disease, kind of related, solved some things. Science came up with various things, observations about the world. We now have instruments and methodologies for studying the world and for studying the human anatomy and for studying diseases and surgery and different modalities for education and healthcare and we've done a lot with technology. And technology also caused a lot of these problems. So as soon as someone says, "Oh, well, technology will solve the problem," they're in denial. Maybe it will. I don't think it can. It really violates several laws, important laws of physics. And besides which, our experience with technology is somewhat checkered. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes we can't make up our mind whether it's good or bad. Okay, all that work around the atom and atomic fusion and fission and uh, y- radioactivity and all that stuff. Well, that gave us nuclear power. Yay, that was wonderful. Except for the nuclear waste, and it gave us atomic bombs. But okay, but it also gave us cancer treatments. Radiotherapy. Okay, fine. And we also got X-ray machines. And okay, that's pretty good. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. You know, but we also got the atom bomb, and we got nuclear waste. So really nothing has there's no technology that is consistently, undeniably good. They eventually have some kind of a drawback. In modern medicine, with all the inventions, starting with penicillin, right? Uh, there are people who can't afford healthcare. There are now resistance to antibiotics. We just kept giving antibiotics for every possible thing we could think of until finally the bacteria became immune to the antibiotic. And of course, viruses never did respond to antibiotics, not as such. So yeah, we kind of messed that up. We had it for a while; it worked great, and then we kind of messed it up. So is it uniformly great? I don't know. Now we have super bugs. Didn't used to be you could go into a hospital and get sick with a bacterium that would eat your skin off, and now you can. What's it called? Uh, MS. It doesn't matter. There's a name for the skin-eating bacteria, right? Methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus is what it is, or something like that. Not my field. So, is technology going to save us from climate change? What about direct air capture of carbon dioxide? What about um, BECS or uh, geoengineering or uh, uh, carbon sequestration and capture and sequestration, right? These are all technologies. We could use these to strip the carbon out of the atmosphere or not allow the carbon to be released into the atmosphere in the first place. Or with the carbon that's in the atmosphere and the heat that we're going to get from that, we could put mirrors in space or something like that, right? We could do all those things. Yeah, well, you can't do any of those things. You can't do those things. Why? Oh, well, let me explain that to you then. Because you're doing something that's going to affect every single human on the earth, and they won't allow it. They won't allow it. They're conspiratorial. Do you think the North Koreans? Do you think the North Koreans are going to allow you to put mirrors in space over their country? Do you think the Chinese are going to allow that? Do you think the Russians, the most paranoid people on earth, are going to allow that to have your mirrors in space, which could easily be, space lasers, or could easily be death rays? Do you think they're going to allow that? Of course not. And so no, you can't do that. You can talk about it, but you can't do space lasers. Yeah, you can't do space mirrors. You can't do space anything. What about direct air capture? Well, that's going to take energy. Direct air capture of CO2 takes energy. You got energy out of the carbon fuels when you released it, and you have to put that energy right back into it when you try and pull it out of the atmosphere. That's just the laws of physics. That's just thermodynamics, basic thermodynamics. And these projects to pull CO2 out of the atmosphere are going to be running on what? Coal-fired power plants? Of course. Of course it will. And so the oil companies and the coal companies will allow there to be a an experimental plant to pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And of course, the power will come through the wires, and we won't look to see what's at the other end of the wires, way out there in the next valley over. And it's a coal-fired power plant, or it's a natural gas-fired power plant, or something else out there. And they're using that to pull carbon dioxide out of the air. Yay! Bring all the children close so they can all see, and let's all take pictures and selfies in front of the direct air capture machine. And meanwhile, it's being operated from electricity over there from a coal-fired power plant. Oh, no, you say, no, 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 no. Of course it'll be a solar plant. Of course it'll be wind farm. But no one talks about that. I'm the one that talks about that. Yeah, you're going to have to come up. You're going to have to make a decision. Yay, that. What you're going to do is you're going to build a 100-acre solar farm over here where the sun shines. And then you're going to use that electricity not to power schools or hospitals or homes. No, you're going to use it to power a direct air capture plant over here that's built by the oil companies. So they can, over here on this other stage over here, where they can have a press conference showing off how important that their direct air capture is and how now they've solved all the problems. So everyone get in your car and go on a 500-mile road trip. That's what they're going to do. And they're going to have 100 acres of solar panels to give them a press conference. So they can have a press conference. And have you solved the problem? No, you haven't. And you would need 50,000 of those plants, exactly as described. 100 acres of solar panels, a huge thing, and pulling the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and storing it in bricks or something else that's solid. And that'd be your solution, 50,000 of those. That's not going to happen. And if you think technology is going to save us, any kind of technology that I've mentioned, then you're in denial. And lots of people think those things. And lots of people think that what we're fighting is climate change. And they're in denial too. Here's another one. Well, we'll just plant trees. Trees pull carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, and they build leaves and trunks and roots, and the roots are good for the soil, and the trees provide habitat for the birds and the squirrels and the unicorns, and plant trees everywhere. No, you're not going to do that. No one's going to do that. I mean, you might plant a tree. You might plant a tree in your backyard. That's fine. I guess you can do that. But we need... I saw somebody work it up. Someone actually went to the trouble to work it up, and to capture to annually capture the CO2 emissions from current business as usual with fossil fuels, you would need to use 1/4 of the Earth's surface planting trees for 1 year. 1 year of emissions. 30 gigatons of CO2 emissions. You would need 30 gigatons of wood, basically, essentially on a 1-to-1 ratio. And how many trees is 30 gigatons of wood? Billions of trees. It's hundreds of billions of trees. And where would you plant these trees? Did you know that humans currently occupy every part of the earth that can be occupied? We have a few, small places that we've set aside as forest reserves and habitat for animals and whatnot. And there's maybe a few other places that we just haven't gotten around to, tearing up and putting cities or planting our fields. But everything else on the planet is either occupied by humans under asphalt and concrete, or under our crops, or under the feet of our domesticated animals, cattle, sheep, goats, whatever, pigs. Or it's under freeways, or it's under airports, or it's under existing forests. So where are you going to find all the acreage to plant the equivalent of 30 gigatons of CO2 to be contained in trees? Where are you going to find a place for that? Someone did the math, and they said, okay, given the Earth's surface, the part that isn't under seawater, you could plant for 4 years trees to capture 4 years worth of 30 gigatons annually of carbon emissions. That does not count anything that we put in the atmosphere before we did the 30 gigatons this year. You're just keeping up with annual emissions, and only for 4 years, and then the planet is full. Only 4 years, and then the planet is full, and then you need another planet, and you don't have one. Now you could cut the trees down and you could do something with the wood. Oh, but wait, it takes at least 20 years for the tree to even grow up big enough to be something you could cut. And did you know that the tree isn't going to contain its 1 ton of carbon for 20 or 30 years? You don't get 30 gigatons of carbon removed from the atmosphere by sticking a seed in the ground. No, that is not how that works. That seed has to germinate, it has to survive, it has to get to a size, it has to get big, it has to, it has to be there unmolested. No one cut it down, no animal ate it, no bark beetle ate it, no fire came along and set fire to it, and no one cleared it to plant rice. And after 20, 30 years, yeah, well, then there's embodied carbon in that tree, and then you have to leave it alone. Because if you do anything with it, well, then it's not in the tree anymore. Now, you could do some things and you could be very careful with the tree, but guess what? Anything you do to process that tree, anything, even cutting it down, adds to the carbon footprint. And you're already hoping that it's going to remove the carbon that you emitted the year you planted it 30 years ago. And now you're going to use more carbon resources to process it into something else so that you can cut it down and plant another tree there. And that's still only going to take out 1 year's worth of CO2 emissions, assuming our CO2 emissions haven't gone up. You're in denial. Oh, we'll just plant trees. Go ahead and plant a tree. But if you think that's going to solve your problem with global heating, you're in denial. You're wrong. And I haven't even gotten to the best part. I'm just talking about planting trees, finding open ground that's arable land, that isn't desert, that isn't tundra, that isn't already trees. I'm just talking about just finding a place where you can stick a seed in the ground and say, oh, there's one, and walk over 10 feet, stick another seed in the ground and say, well, that's two. That process right there, that mechanical process of finding dirt to put a seed in, that isn't even the most interesting part. The most interesting part is that these trees are part of the carbon cycle. Part of the carbon cycle. They're not removing CO2 from the carbon cycle. They're part of the carbon cycle. So when they drop their leaves every year, those leaves return back to the atmosphere through decay, right? They go in nitrous oxides and methane and carbon dioxide right back in the atmosphere. Now, it's true, the next year in the spring, it'll put on new leaves and pull some of that down. But that's all that's happening. It's cycling carbon. The only real carbon that gets pulled from the carbon cycle goes into the trunks and goes into the roots. But when the tree dies, which it inevitably must, right? Some only live as fast-growing trees can only live maybe 30, 40 years. Long-lived trees like sequoias and great oaks and whatnot, they only live 100 maybe 150, and then they die. And when they die, they fall down and they hit the soil, and all the animals get into them and eat the wood and destroy the tree, and the tree just disappears. And where did it go? Well, it went into the atmosphere as nitrous oxides and methane and carbon dioxide, right back into the carbon cycle. So yeah, you can stick all these seeds in the ground and cover the earth 4 times over for 4 years. And now you've got 4 years of carbon emissions for 4 years worth. That will in 40 years be tied up in those trees that you just planted. But that's only they're all part of the carbon cycle. What are you going to do with that wood when it collects that CO2? Are you going to burn it? Are you going to let forest fires take it? What are you going to do? Because it's not going to be forever. Trees don't live forever. Coal, oil, and natural gas, when it was in the earth as a mineral, was gone. It was not in the carbon cycle. It was not in the atmosphere, in the biosphere. It wasn't part of any of that. It was in the ground as minerals. And what we did was we pulled it out and set fire to it. We put it back in circulation. It was down here in the dirt and the rocks. We got our big equipment, our big clawing tractors. We clawed it out of the ground, set it on fire. We did that. We return that carbon to the carbon cycle. Trees are part of the carbon cycle. What you have to do is you have to use technology or something to reproduce the effect of coal, oil, and natural gas in the ground as a mineral, not in the overarching carbon cycle. It has to be returned to the earth as a mineral. Can you do that? Do you know how to do that? Can you do that at scale? Can you do that to the tune of 31 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year? Can you do that? You can't do that. You can't do that now. You can't do that now. You can't do that maybe ever. Well, they'll innovate, they'll figure it out. Okay, you're in denial. You're in denial. I'm a scientist, I'm a biologist. I'm here to tell you you're in denial. You don't have to like it. But if you think planting trees is going to save your bacon, you're wrong. You're just wrong. There's good reasons to plant trees. We like forest habitat. The squirrels and the monkeys and the unicorns, they all like forest habitat. And we like sitting under the trees, and they're cool, and it's beautiful, and it's nature. And I just feel so blessed by the trees. And go ahead and plant a tree. Plant lots of trees. You're going to need lots of blessings, okay? You're going to need lots of cool places to hang out and to get away from the beating sun, because the world is going to get hot. Plant trees. Not because they're going to save you from the world getting hot, because they ain't, but because you'll be able to sit under the tree and get out of the sun. You're in denial. Another form of denial. All these COPs, Conference of the Parties, right? They all come together, and the great and the good, and they all come together, and they talk about all the things we have to do, and they talk about this, and they talk about that, and they're going to save the underdeveloped countries, and they're going to send money to the global South, and they're going to do all these things, and the wealthy nations are going to do their part, and the poor nations are going to adopt resilient practices, and it never happens. We don't know how to do this. We don't know how to do this. We just had, what was it, COP28, the 28th iteration of this circus act. We just had the 28th iteration of this circus act. And despite all the urgency that keeps coming out of every corner of the scientific community, right? Despite 20 years of screaming into the void, the 28th version of the COP did exactly nothing. The parties at the conference don't know what to do, and they will never know what to do, because anything you could do about global heating, not climate change, global heating, anything you might want to do is going to come down to not enhancing the greenhouse effect, which means not emitting carbon dioxide into the atmosphere through human activities, which means the main human activity, which is burning fossil fuels. And so there you go. And they're just not going to do that. Everybody keeps saying, yeah, we'll just keep talking about this, and we'll keep meeting, and we'll try to be equitable, and we'll try to be just, and we're going to do all these things. We're going to float all the boats, and every child gets a pony. And it's just blather. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing. Absolutely gibberish. And if you think that having these conferences and having these scientific colloquia and having all these, climate scientists try it out on the stage and put up the charts and put up the things and talk about the polar bears and talk about the ice flows, and you think all that's going to help? You think so? You really think so? That's the answer? Dialogue? We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this and talk around and round and round and round and round, chasing our climate tail. That's how we're going to solve this? That's how? Really? Well, then you're in denial. So that's not how you're going to solve this. That's how you're going to delay the day when you stop burning fossil fuels. You just talk about everything else. Everything you can imagine. Justice, equity, fairness, floating all the boats, economic growth, jobs, resilience, green this, green that, green everything. You'll talk about everything else. It's all gobbledygook. And you won't talk about the one thing, which I guess is two things. The one thing is we are emitting carbon dioxide and methane and nitrous oxides, a bunch of other crap, into the atmosphere through human activities that happen every single day, right here in front of my house. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Right in front of my every day we are doing that, which enhances the greenhouse effect. And the way we're doing that is we're burning fossil fuels. And the way we're doing that is we're digging them out of the ground, where they have been for hundreds of millions of years. We're digging them out of the ground, setting fire to them. That's the thing. That's what you have to talk about. Are you talking about that? No, you're not. No, my love, you are not talking about that. You'll talk climate change and you'll talk equity and social justice, but you won't talk about that other thing, which is leaving the fossil fuels in the ground. 5 little words, people. I want to hear them. I want us all to say them together. I'll tell you what they are first, and then we're all going to say them together. See if you can do this. It's a test. It's a quiz, okay? Professor Cougar is giving you a quiz. Here's the 5 little words. Pay attention. You already know what they are. Leave it in the ground. Referring to fossil fuels. I'll say it again. Leave it in the ground. That's it. That's how you attack global heating, because global heating is the greenhouse effect, and the greenhouse effect is being augmented by carbon emissions. You know the crap. And the way we're doing that is we're pulling up fossil fuels and we're setting fire to them because we like it, because it makes our hair fine, and we have great cell phones, and the Wi-Fi is everywhere, and whatever else. Okay. So what is it? Let me hear it. Let's all say it together. All right. Let's all say it together. Leave it in the ground. Did you say it? I bet you didn't. I bet you wouldn't. Nobody does. Nobody can. People are scared spitless of 5 little words arranged in that particular order. Leave it in the ground. They won't say it. They won't say it. And because you won't say it, you're in denial. You wouldn't even say it when you're alone in your house with no one to hear. You wouldn't even say it. You wouldn't say it to yourself in the mirror. You wouldn't say it walking down the street by yourself. I'm going to leave it in the ground. We need to leave it in the ground. We just got to leave it in the ground. It's done. It sounds nightmarish. It is nightmarish. I can't imagine life without fossil fuels. Can I even imagine food without fossil fuels? Least of all, internet and electricity and sewer treatment. And what about just food, clothing, shelter? You know, my shirt, there's a tag in the back that said this came from Pakistan using fossil fuels. You're walking down the street and you're realizing, leave it in the ground. That's the end of my world. That's the end of the world for somebody. That gets you thinking, wow, it's the end of the world for somebody. Who is that somebody? Is that me? Is that the end of my world? Can it be somebody else's world that ends, not mine? Because if I have to give up fossil fuels and we have to leave fossil fuels in the ground, that's the end of the world for somebody. Those people in Pakistan won't be able to ship me my shirt. And I don't even know who's going to make my shirt. Is there anyone in my neighborhood going to make a shirt for me? Because we let the fossil fuels be in the ground? Oh, yeah. Maybe you get that far in your conversation with yourself. Maybe you get that far. Maybe you get that far. And then you stop. You just stop thinking about it. Walking down the street, thinking about something else. Think about going to Starbucks and getting your latte, you know? Denial. It's denial. It's mainstream climate change acceptance denial. It's denial. So yeah, I get savage. I know what I'm up against. I know it's all around me. I'm surrounded by it. I'm like the Cheshire cat. I'm mad, you're mad, everyone here is mad. But I don't want to be among mad people. Well, here you are, Alice. Welcome to the madness. Welcome to the insanity. There's that scene in the first Avatar movie where Jake Sully, the guy in the Avatar, he ends up being in the Na'vi village, and the old seer, the woman, the what do they call it? Shamaness, the shamaness. She comes down and he says he wants to learn their ways. And she says it is difficult to, fill a jar that is already filled. And he says, yeah, well, my jar is empty. And she says, okay, fine. We'll see if your madness can be cured. We'll see if your madness can be cured. She says that. She knows he's insane. She's not saying something nice. Like, let's see if we can convince you that our way is better. Let's see if we can be fair with each other. Let's see if we can help you see our side of it. She doesn't say that. No, she's not saying that. She's the Cheshire Cat. She's a savage. And what does she say? To his face, nose to nose. We'll see if your insanity can be cured. Probably the best line in the entire movie. We'll see if your insanity can be cured. Go back and watch it. Google it. Probably there's a YouTube clip. Play it on repeat. We'll see if your insanity can be cured. Because that is my objective. Can I cure you, relieve you of your insanity? That's my challenge. How am I doing? Yeah, this sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, this sucks. I'm surrounded by this. Some days I just like, why? Why do I bother? I should just do like the cat. I should just disappear. I should just disappear and leave Alice to her adventure and just let her deal with the madness. Just let her figure it out. And yet, the Cheshire Cat is there and he helps her through the whole thing and he just sticks with it. And she leaves Wonderland, hopefully a better person for it. And the Cheshire Cat was there. And of course, he didn't get out. He didn't get out because that's his place. That's his place. That's my place, to be here stuck in this madness, this insanity. So I keep coming back. I keep coming back to this channel. I keep coming back to this video camera. And I rage. And I don't say anything that isn't true. I don't say anything that isn't necessary. I don't say anything that isn't instructive. 5 little words. What are they? That's right. And now you know the truth. And so long as you keep that truth front and center of your mind, you'll find a way through this. That is your touchstone. That is your beacon. Leave it in the ground. Leave it in the ground. Leave it in the ground. My God, we must leave it in the ground somehow, some way, someday. We have to figure out how to leave it in the ground. Why can't we leave it in the ground? There's lots of reasons we can't leave it in the ground. Can we solve those things? We solve those problems and we do it quickly, or we just ignore them. We just jump over them. They don't even matter. We have to leave it in the ground. Leave it in the ground. Just leave it in the ground. It's the only truth. We must leave it in the ground. Yeah, I'm a savage. I take no prisoners. I take no prisoners. I want no prisoners. I want you to be sane. I want to cure your insanity.